What up, fam? I am Dr. DeLuna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today, we are going to cover some essential lab tests for you to request if you are working on your mental health. While mental health is a very complex thing, there are quite a few things that might be underlying and contributing to your signs and symptoms that you should know about. So fam, mental health is something near and dear to my heart. I love working holistically on mental health, and it is quite clear that mental health is very multifactorial, meaning that your genetics play into it, your trauma plays into it, your environment plays into it, your exposures and your hormones and your nutrients and your diet, your lifestyle, so many things play into it. However, a lot of you are doing the work. You're going to therapy, you're diving deep, you're noticing your patterns, but you still feel like something's missing. This is where lab work could really shift your internal picture. Because what if you're feeling off because you're deficient in a vitamin or mineral that you would need to do some type of chemical pathway? What if you're really inflamed? What if your body is trying to tell you something that you are told is normal? So this episode is going to give you some tools so that you know what to request through your doctor, or that you can truly just order yourself so that you know that information and can work with it. So for something like mental health, there's a lot of different things that go into it. And the first thing that I want you to consider with mental health is that your brain might not have the building blocks that it needs to make neurochemicals. I say this with awareness of how it might make you feel. And I know, just stay with me, that there is actually not one study that shows that depression is related to changes in serotonin in the brain. I know. Then why is everyone prescribed an SSRI? Beats me, honestly. So outside of serotonin, there is an incredible amount of neurochemicals and compounds that are impacting the way that nerves fire, the way that you might experience an emotion. And yes, of course, serotonin can be one of them, but I wish that that was a magic pill that could help everyone, but ultimately it's not. And oftentimes, I find that individuals are very deficient in the vitamins and minerals that they need to even make neurotransmitters. So a lot of these compounds are made from protein. So you, first and foremost, you need to make sure that you're eating protein. And also, every coenzyme in the body requires some type of micronutrient to stimulate that chemical response. And a lot of those are B vitamins. A lot of those are minerals. So truly, my honey, I think that you need to know if you're B12 deficient. I think you need to know if you're B9 deficient. And I think you definitely need to know if you're vitamin B6 deficient. So yes, you can test all of your B vitamins, but those are the three biggest ones. Again, B12, that's cobalamin. B9, that is folate, or B6, that's pyridoxine. All three of those are also part of the methylation system. So you may have heard about COMT SNPs or MTHFR SNPs. Those are basically single nucleotide polymorphisms that influence the way that those enzymes function. And those are just telling you that your body needs more methylation support, that your body might have an issue activating those B vitamins. So while I do think that there is some way that those could be useful in your clinical picture, I just need to know if you have enough of those vitamins to start with. So let me also just mention that the reference ranges for labs are grossly inaccurate. They are massive, and they're usually just an average of whoever went to that lab. So if you have a B12 that's 232, you might not be flagged by that lab, but I will tell you that my patients feel way better when it's 600, 700, 800, 1,000 even. So that is something I would absolutely look into. B12 is needed to turn your brain on. It's needed for your nerves to conduct. It's needed to detoxify. Vitamin B9 is folate. Those of you that have ever grown a baby before know how important it is for that aspect, and that's because of what it's doing to neurodevelopment. It's doing the same thing to you. It's helping to soothe your brain. It's helping to make neurochemicals. It's helping for you to have a happy internal ecosystem. Either of those two B vitamins can influence mental health significantly, which is why so many people, especially if you're plant-based and you get a B12 shot, you might feel like a human again. I would want to know personally if I didn't feel like a human, and then if I could just take B12 and it would change my life. I personally would want to know that. Vitamin B6. This is also near and dear to my heart because I have no problem sharing this with you. I actually tried to kill myself on hormonal birth control. I did. I hated my life. I didn't think anything was going to get better ever. And when you're on birth control, you get so depleted in B vitamins, which is another reason why I need to share this information with you, because you might feel very depressed because your body just doesn't have enough vitamin B6. That is what is depleted with birth control and quite a few other pharmaceutical medications. Vitamin B6 is needed to make almost every single happy neurochemical. So if you don't have that, of course you're going to feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Of course you're going to feel like you're locked in a dark, dark dungeon because your brain cannot see the light of day. B6, magical for that. Definitely want you to test it. And I would say overall, those reference ranges are so big that if you're at the lower end of a range, just consider that you would benefit from it, okay? Even if your doctor's like, it wasn't out of normal, you're fine. But it might be suboptimal. So also working with a functional provider can help you gain that insight. So B vitamins. I would want to know if I was anxious, if I had enough iron, because iron is what is helping your cells hold oxygen. That oxygen is going to your brain. If your brain does not think it has enough oxygen, it's kind of stressful. It's a little bit stressful. Just hold your breath for a minute. See if your brain freaks out. It will. Similar thing can happen if you're low in iron, but also carrying oxygen on those cells also involves those 3 B vitamins that I just mentioned. So it kind of overflows. But iron is something that if you are not eating red meat, I love red meat. I'll eat a steak every day if you give it to me. I will, and I honestly almost do. So if you are plant-based, if you just don't get enough iron in your diet, or if you have something like a parasite or a low-grade bleed or heavy periods, anything like that, you're probably depleted in iron. So now your brain is perceiving that there is an issue all the time because it might not be getting enough oxygen and you could be incredibly anxious. So something like iron could change your life. Also, when I say test iron, I want you to test your serum iron and your storage form of iron, which is ferritin. Both of those are really helpful to understand what's going on in your body because gut inflammation will directly influence how much ferritin, which is the storage form of iron that you have. And if your body doesn't have enough in storage, it could be because of gut inflammation, also parasites. You know, I love talking about parasites. So some other things that you would want to investigate is just a simple CBC with differential. That is looking at your white blood cells and your red blood cells because this would tell you if you do have anemia. Anemia will make you anxious. It will absolutely make you depressed. You need iron to make dopamine. We like dopamine. We like feeling good, okay? So this is for me to just convince you to maybe take a multivitamin, who's to say? But yes, you want to test all of these things. Vitamin D. Vitamin D. I actually had a patient this week tell me that she started taking vitamin D and everything fell into place just with vitamin D. I didn't even tell her to. She just started taking it before she started visiting me, and we tested her vitamin D. It was very low. Vitamin D, in the literature, there are studies on this that have shown that low vitamin D increases your risk of depression and anxiety significantly. And I think it's because vitamin D is such a strong anti-inflammatory agent, and it's also helping to manage all of your hormones and kind of that internal cellular world. So if your body does not have that input to quell inflammation, that can cause a whole bunch of different cellular changes to present that might make you feel depressed, anxious, or just not like yourself. So vitamin D is something that even if you live in Southern California like me, even though it rains all the fucking time now because welcome to the tropics, the world is changing. But if you are someone that even lives in a sunny environment like me, for you to make enough vitamin D, you need a lot of sun exposure. Like you don't want to be covered up in clothes. You don't want to have sunscreen on. You don't want to wear sunglasses. That impacts your ability to make vitamin D. And my ancestors, look at my gorgeous melanin. My ancestors were probably outside naked most of the time. I would love to do that if I wouldn't have a stalker then follow me home. So if you're like me and have some melanin in your skin, you're actually not going to make enough vitamin D just from being outside unless you're naked all the time, which unfortunately society does not allow me to do that. So you need to supplement with vitamin D, and getting your levels tested will guide you as far as how much you need to take, how often you need to take, and all of that good stuff. Mental health is also very much dependent on your hormones, okay? So different hormones give you motivation, different hormones make you feel calm, different hormones make you feel like yourself. So if you're someone that's menstruating, you could definitely have hormonal imbalances show up and where you have mental health crises at certain times of your cycle. That would probably lead you to think more so estrogen, progesterone, but you might just be flatlined throughout the entire month. That might be cortisol. It might be that you have low testosterone and you don't have motivation. So hormones play a huge role in mental health. A big part of that hormonal picture is cortisol because cortisol is your stress hormone. So you would want to know if you have too much, too little, if your adrenal glands are telling your body and every cell inside of your body that there is something scary going on, you would want to know that. So hormones are a really big thing that I like to look at. You could look at them in the blood, you could look at them in the saliva, you could look at them in the urine. Other things that I would want to look at if I was working on my mental health and couldn't get to the bottom of it is I would want to know if there was something really inflammatory in my body. So there are studies that have shown that inflammatory chemicals in circulation can trigger the nervous system in a way that mimics depression. So inflammation in the brain, and again, my favorite podcast listeners, you know this because I share this with you, because I love talking about the root causes of mental health, because they've changed my life. But if you have significant inflammation in your body, say you hit your head, say you get food poisoning, say, you get hit by a car, whatever it is, now you're really inflamed, that inflammation is happening because you have inflammatory chemicals circulating in your body. Those inflammatory chemicals influence your neurochemistry and can make you feel very depressed and can make you just not feel like yourself. So inflammation could be a root cause of your mental health concerns. And that inflammation could be due to so many things. So if your inflammatory markers are high, things like HSCRP, things like ESR, things that are going on in the background, things like your liver enzymes can tell you about your inflammation. There's a lot of different pieces to that puzzle, but you would want some insight there because then that brings you to why. Why are you inflamed? Is it something in your environment? Is it something that you're eating? Because another thing that may be helpful for you on your journey to uncovering the root causes of your mental health concerns would maybe be a stool test. I know, everyone loves pooping in a cup. So stool tests, I love them because they're telling you about your internal world. They're telling you about your microbiome. My favorite stool test is from Vibrant Wellness. It's called the Gut Zoomer. You can find it on my website. You don't even have to work with me. It's just truly their test from their website, but would love to look at your poop any day. Truly would be honored to. But the microbes within us, they help to make different vitamins. They help to detoxify. They help to make neurotransmitters. The bugs within you are helping create a lot of the serotonin in your brain. So if you have something like a chronic infection in your gut or something really inflammatory, or even something like inflammatory bowel disease, that inflammation in the gut is going to talk to your brain via the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve 10. We love cranial nerve 10, and it will trigger feelings of depression, anxiety, things like that. Because really anxiety at kind of its core is feeling like there's something bad that is about to happen. And that might be your nervous system perceiving that there's something in your body that should not be there. So getting an insight into those inflammatory triggers, but also getting an insight into your gut can be really helpful because then you could target it with probiotics or whatever your body needs to digest things a little bit better. So I did not want to leave that out at all. There's also something that you can do called an organic acid test, and that would look at a lot of different factors in your body that tells you about different neurotransmitter breakdowns. It could show you for signs of dysbiosis, which is microbial imbalances. It could show you about different organ functions and also cellular health, because what if your mitochondria are just not allowing you to make energy to be happy? That's something I would say a little lower on the line because I kid you not, I find a lot of mental health things with everything that I listed before. The B vitamins, the iron, the anemia, but something that I did not mention that could also cause every mental emotional symptom under the sun is blood sugar. You need to know what's going on with your blood sugar, fam, because if your blood sugar's high, you're not going to feel well. You're going to be exhausted, lethargic. If your blood sugar's low, you're going to feel hangry. You're going to feel anxious and irritable. And you might have a little ping pong effect in which it's low and then it's high, it's low and then it's high. So then your mood is swinging all over the place and you're like, I have bipolar. No, you don't, honey. You just need to eat. You do. We must eat. Okay. So, step one, if you're working on mental health, just like maybe eat real food. Feed yourself throughout the day. That creates an internal sense of safety. So when you were looking at your blood sugar, I would look at your fasting blood sugar. I would look at your insulin, and I would also look at your hemoglobin A1C because that gives you some insight into how high and how low those swings have been going. Another game changer for mental health that I would personally want to know if I was deficient in is magnesium. We love magnesium. Magnesium is good for everything. It's almost like the Windex from my big fat Greek wedding. Just put some magnesium on it, see what it does. Magnesium relaxes everything. It helps quell the mind. It relaxes muscle tension. It helps with the nerve conduction. It helps with sleep. It helps with stress. It soothes your adrenal glands, blah, 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 blah. If you are low in magnesium, you're not going to feel great. Your nervous system's going to be wired and on edge. I would give that a little piccola. Something else that I would want to know if it was off, if my mental health was a mess, is my thyroid. Thyroid's a little butterfly gland that lives in your throat. It's producing thyroid hormone. When you have too much thyroid hormone, you could feel very anxious. You could feel on edge. You could feel irritable. If you have too little thyroid hormone, you're going to be depressed. You're going to be exhausted. You're not going to have motivation for anything. So that's something that you can investigate, and you would want a full thyroid panel for that, I would say, and a full thyroid panel in case you don't subscribe to this podcast, which why would you ever do such a stupid thing? But in case you don't know this, because you haven't listened to any of the thyroid episodes, a full thyroid panel is TSH, which is a brain hormone. It's also your thyroid hormones, which are T4, T3, free T4, free T3. I would throw in there the antibodies, anti-TPO and anti-TG, because this is a very common source of autoimmune reactions. And I would also throw in there something called RT3, which is reverse T3, which is something that your thyroid will make when you're under significant stress. So you can be told that your thyroid's normal. Usually your doctor will tell that by just testing TSH, which again is a brain hormone, so that's not really fair. But then say that all your thyroid hormones are within normal limits, but then you have a high amount of reverse T3. That's just confusing the whole picture. So, you really do want that comprehensive look. One of the last things that I would want to know if my mental health was a mess is I would want to know if there was some type of autoimmune process going on. So you can screen for autoimmunity with something called ANA, anti-nuclear antibody. And this is essentially the way that your immune system marks something that shouldn't be in there, but it marks it for self-attack. So you can get an autoimmune reaction in your gut. You can get an autoimmune reaction in your thyroid. You can get it in your brain. You could get it anywhere. But that inflammatory signal is telling your nervous system, hey, it's not safe. There's something here I need to look at. We need to attack. And that kind of sounds like anxiety, right? So a good idea to take a peek into that. So a lot of these tests should just be a part of routine testing. And I'm aware that I said should, because a lot of the times they're not. So I'm going to run through them again from top to bottom so that you can write them down. This is definitely an episode that you wanted to take notes on. If not, listen back. You have it for access. Maybe even send it to your doctor who says that there's nothing that we can do besides put you on an SSRI. And maybe you will teach them that there's a lot that you can do to figure out what's going on. So you want to know your B vitamins, B12, B9, B6. You can test these in serum, or you can do something like a full-blown nutritional evaluation that would look at your cells, how your body's absorbing them. That's a little bit more in depth. So of course, I'm a big fan of all the functional tests. More data, the better. But if you're like, not ready to invest in that, I just want to know my standard B vitamins, you could test them in the blood. No big deal. Vitamin D, magnesium, iron, and ferritin. You would want to test your inflammatory markers. You would want to test your thyroid and all of your hormones. And I would want to know if I had something like autoimmunity, which you can screen with ANA. You could even do an ANA with reflex, which means that they will test your ANA, and if it's abnormal, then they send it down the line to the other tests. If you want to take a deep dive into your gut, truly gut health, there's a reason why doctors say all health begins in the gut, because it does. If your gut's a mess, your brain's going to be a mess. They're connected by a nerve. They're connected by the vagus nerve. So a stool test might be something that you want to look into, especially if you're someone that does have low-grade digestive symptoms. I know for me, gluten and I hate one another. And when I get glutened, I get depressed. I really do. And that's because of the influence that the inflammation in the gut has on the brain. So that's something that I just wanted you to be aware of. So my sweet angels, I want you to understand what is going on inside of your body. Mental health is something that no one sees, right? So it's really easy to, on the surface, look like you're well, but inside not feel well. And it really breaks my heart that we are told as a collective that there's only one choice. There's only one option. If you don't want to do that, like, good luck. You can try therapy. And trust me, huge fan of mental health support, huge fan of therapy, huge fan of you using a tool when you need it. If you're on a medication to help you get through a really challenging time, I support you. However, that's not the solution. That's your body telling you. And it could be something as simple as you just needing more sunlight and vitamin D, or your body craving more B vitamins because you have, H. pylori and your gut's inflamed and you're not absorbing your vitamins. That was just a random fun fact for you. But you really can empower yourself with everything that you need to thrive. And it really does come down to the basics: some nutrition, inflammation, blood sugar, hormones. So write all that down. take it to your doctor. Let me know what they say. And if you're like, my doctor won't run any of these, you can definitely find a doctor that will. I would love to be that person for you. You can work with me clicking the link in the bio, or I can point you in the direction of one of my amazing colleagues that loves to work on the root causes of mental health. Your life matters. Your happiness is worth every penny that you will spend to investigate your health. Truly, you are here to be the best version of you. And that might mean just taking a little B vitamin. Okay, baby. Thank you for being here. Truly, I love you. I will see you soon.